Welcome, dip divers. Ever stop to think about the hitting heroes in elite sports?
Mm.
I don't mean the athletes, scoring goals or breaking records.
Right.
I'm talking about the officials, the referees, the people who actually make the game possible.
Yeah, the ones keeping it all together.
Exactly. And they're under this intense pressure, making split-second decisions, decisions that can change everything.
With thousands of eyes just watching.
And emotions running high. So today, we're diving deep into that pressure cooker, specifically the mental game of elite volleyball referees.
It's a fascinating area and, like you said, often overlooked in sports psychology research.
Yeah, and we're going to uncover something really interesting, kind of a paradox.
Mm.
What happens when the objective measures of stress, the hard data, doesn't quite match up with how the referees themselves feel about their well-being? Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it. Our deep dive today centers on a really compelling study. It's titled Stress and Anxiety Among Elite Volleyball Referees While Officiating. The research team includes Stefanie Klatt, Lisa Marie Bay, Sebastian Brückner, André Jungen, Benjamin Noël, and Bernd Strauss.
Quite a team.
Yes, and it was published in the Journal of Sports Science and Medicine. That's volume 24, pages 160 to 171. It came online March 1st, 2025.
Got it. So our mission for you today, listening in, is to really get a handle on the unique stressors these volleyball refs face, how their bodies, how their minds react to that pressure, and maybe most importantly, can specific interventions actually help them navigate these really high-stakes situations?
It's about looking beyond the surface.
Right? Getting into the nuance, especially when, perceptions and the hard data might tell slightly different stories.
Well, the role of any referee really is pivotal. It's incredibly complex.
You can say that again?
They have to rapidly assess situations, make prompt decisions, and manage matches with often very emotional athletes and teams.
It's a real tightrope walk, often invisible until, bang, a controversial call happens.
Exactly.
You'd think, given how crucial they are, there'd be loads of research on them. But it seems like the focus is usually on the players.
You would expect more, definitely. But while sports psychology research really digs into athlete stress,
Yeah.
studies on referees, particularly in volleyball, are, well, pretty scarce.
Why volleyball specifically?
Well, it's a significant gap because for volleyball referees, the key skills are so cognitive. We're talking intense concentration, unwavering focus, super rapid decision-making.
Because the game is so fast.
So fast. Brief rallies, you need technically sound judgment on ball handling, plus that emotionally charged atmosphere,
Right.
and the common stressors. Things like the fear of failure, making a critical error, especially when they know they're being watched, evaluated.
Yeah, that evaluation piece must add so much pressure. It plays out in so many fields. So, okay, before we go deeper, how should we define stress here? What are we actually talking about?
It's a good question. At its core, stress is a natural process. It's how external things, like game situations, are interpreted based on how they might impact performance or well-being. And that interpretation then shapes emotional and physiological states.
Okay. Here's where it gets really interesting, because this isn't just some fuzzy feeling. There's a model for this, right?
Exactly. We can lean on Lazarus's transactional model of stress. This dates back to 2000.
Lazarus. Okay.
The model explains that stress isn't just a reaction. It comes from the interaction between the person and their environment.
Interaction. Right.
And this interaction is mediated, it's shaped, by two crucial appraisals. First, there's primary appraisal.
Primary.
That's your subjective take on the demands. Is this situation a threat, a challenge, potentially harmful, or maybe even a benefit?
Okay, so how you see it first.
Then comes the secondary appraisal. That's looking inward, evaluating the personal resources you have available to cope with whatever that demand is.
So it's like your brain does this quick check. Can I handle this? Do I have the tools?
Precisely. Spot on. And the mix of those two appraisals, that determines the outcome. Emotional, physiological, behavioral.
Give me an example.
Sure. So if a ref sees a critical call as a challenge, something they can nail, and they feel they have the skills, the resources, they might feel positive emotions like excitement, maybe focus. But if they see it as a threat and feel they don't have the resources, that's when negative emotions like anxiety tend to surface.
Okay, anxiety. Now, for you listening, what comes to mind when you hear anxiety? It's definitely more than just feeling a bit nervous before a big match, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Anxiety is a much broader response. It's
Yeah.
often tied to an unknown threat or uncertainty or maybe internal conflict.
Okay.
And it has both physical or somatic components like your heart racing, maybe sweating, faster breathing.
Yeah, the classic sign.
And cognitive components. Those are the negative thoughts, the worries, the self-doubt that can flood your mind.
And that must really impact performance.
It can. Anxiety can lead to avoidance behaviors. And crucially, for a referee, it can negatively affect working memory. That's vital for making quick, accurate decisions. Imagine trying to track a fast rally when your mind is just spinning with what-ifs.
Oof. Okay, so given these intense reactions, how can they be well managed? How do you mitigate stress?
Well, Lazarus, again, back in '99, talked about two general coping strategies.
Okay.
First is problem-focused coping. This is about directly changing the situation or your experience of it.
Like what?
For a ref, maybe consulting a line judge, communicating clearly with a coach to de-escalate things, or just intentionally refocusing on the next play.
Actively doing something about the stressor.
Exactly. The second is emotion-focused coping. This is more about managing your emotional response when the situation itself can't really be changed.
Like dealing with a hostile crowd, you can't exactly stop them.
Precisely. You manage your internal reaction to it. And building on that, Lazarus and Folkman, back in '84, suggested 4 ways stress management interventions could work.
4 ways.
Yeah. Reducing stressors, modifying those cognitive appraisals we talked about, changing how you see the stress,
Right, reframing it.
decreasing the negative feelings, boosting the positive ones, and strengthening your overall coping toolkit.
That makes sense. So we understand the reactions, the coping. But how do you actually measure this stuff scientifically? You can't just ask, how stressed are you on a scale of 1 to 10 and get full picture right?
You've hit a really key point there. Asking is part of it, but yeah, it's not the whole story.
Yeah.
That's where physiological measures are so valuable. Primarily heart rate, HR,
Beats per minute. Simple enough.
and heart rate variability, HRV.
Okay, HRV. That sounds more complex.
It is more nuanced. It measures the variance, the tiny fluctuations in time between each heartbeat.
Fluctuations. Isn't a steady beat good?
Well, counterintuitively, the highest variability usually occurs when you're relaxed. Your heart has flexibility. When your body goes into stress mode, that fight or flight response,
Yeah.
HR typically goes up and HRV tends to go down. The beat becomes more regular, more rigid, preparing for action.
Okay, so higher HRV is generally good, meaning more relaxed or adaptable.
Generally speaking, yes. It gives us objective data to compare alongside what people report feeling.
Okay, fascinating. So, with all that background on stress, anxiety, coping, measurement, let's pivot back to this specific study.
Right.
You mentioned most research was on soccer or basketball refs. They're physically moving a lot, dealing with contact. But volleyball, you said it's more cognitive.
Exactly. It demands intense visual focus, precise observation of hand contact, player positions, complex rules, very different demands than running up and down a court or pitch. This study really aimed to fill that research gap.
So what was the study's main goal?
It was threefold, really. 1, identify the specific stressors for elite volleyball refs. 2, examine the physiological and emotional effects. And 3, the big one, evaluate if a sports psychology intervention could actually help them cope better and maintain performance.
Okay. Did they have specific predictions?
Hypotheses.
Hypotheses.
They did. Based on prior research, they had 2 main hypotheses. First, that stress and anxiety would indeed increase heart rate and decrease heart rate variability in these referees.
Makes sense based on what you just explained.
And second, that a specific sports psychology intervention program would help the refs cope, leading to reduced stress and anxiety responses and ultimately sustained performance.
All right. So how did they test this? Who participated?
They recruited 38 elite German volleyball referees, a good mix, 24 men, 14 women, average age around 38.
Experienced group then?
Definitely operating at a high level. They were randomly assigned either to an intervention group that was 20 refs or a control group of 18.
And double blind.
Yes, crucial for objectivity. Neither the sport psychs running the intervention nor the referee manager knew who was in which group during the assignment phase.
Good scientific practice.
But there was a complication. The COVID-19 pandemic hit during the study.
Ah, of course. Impacted everything.
It did. So they ended up with complete pre- and post-intervention data from only 21 referees, 13 in the intervention group, 8 in the control.
Still enough to analyze, hopefully.
Yes, enough for statistical analysis, but important context to keep in mind.
Okay. what tools did they use to measure things? You mentioned HR and HRV.
Right. They used a standard psychological questionnaires. The State Trait Anxiety Inventory, or STAI, before and after matches to gauge anxiety.
Okay.
They used an adapted survey called the BASSD, that stands for Basketball Officials Source of Stress Survey, adapted for volleyball after matches to pinpoint specific officiating stressors, like problematic decisions or technical errors.
Gotcha. Measuring the stress itself.
Exactly. And for the intervention group only, they used something called the QS-17 Inventory of Quality Sport Psychological Support to evaluate how they perceive the intervention program.
Getting their subjective feedback.
Crucial piece. And yes, for the objective physiological data, chest straps were used to monitor HR and HRV before, during, and after matches.
Okay, covering all the bases. So what did this intervention program actually involve? What were they doing with the refs?
It was a structured program. 4 steps, facilitated by 2 experienced sports psychologists over several months.
Okay.
And it was grounded in that Lazarus and Folkman transactional model we discussed. The aim was to help refs understand and cope with stress better.
What kind of things did they do?
A range of things. Building trust and rapport was key. Psychoeducation, just understanding what stress is. Mindfulness techniques, tools for cognitive reappraisal.
That reframing idea again.
Exactly. Helping them change how they view stressful situations. Also, embodiment exercises connecting mind and body. And systemic reflection, getting them to think about their role within the whole sports system.
Sounds quite comprehensive. All right, the setup is clear, the moment of truth. What did the data actually show? Let's tackle that first hypothesis, the link between stress, anxiety, and the body's response. So what does this all mean?
Okay, for hypothesis 1, some parts were confirmed. They found a negative relationship between HRV before the match and stress related to problematic single decisions during the match.
Meaning,
refs who were more relaxed beforehand, shown by higher HRV, reported fewer sources of stress when facing those tough calls.
That makes intuitive sense. Being calmer helps handle pressure.
It suggests that, yes. They also found a positive relationship between state anxiety after the match and stress linked to problematic decisions and technical errors.
So if they felt more stressed by tough calls during the game?
They reported higher anxiety afterwards. Again, seems logical the stress lingers.
Okay. Any surprises there?
There was one unexpected finding, a negative relationship between anxiety before the match and stress reported after decisions involving technical errors.
Negative. So higher anxiety before meant less stress reported about technical errors later. That's odd.
It is a bit counterintuitive. It suggests maybe a certain level of pre-match alertness or anxiety might make some refs more focused on avoiding technical mistakes, leading them to report less stress about those specific errors later on. It's complex.
Interesting nuance. What about the overall physiological picture, HR and HRV?
That was very clear. Compared to resting measurements, heart rate was consistently higher and heart rate variability was significantly lower during the matches.
So their bodies were definitely showing stress during the game.
Undeniably. Clear signs of increased psychophysical load while officiating.
Okay. But you mentioned a crucial overall finding earlier for this hypothesis. What was the big takeaway here?
Yes. Despite those clear physiological stress signals, the crucial overall finding was that these elite volleyball referees generally reported minimal anxiety and low levels of officiating-related stress subjectively.
Wow. So body says stress, but mind says I'm handling it.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Their subjective experience seemed quite managed, even under physiological duress.
That's a really important point. Okay, now for the second hypothesis. The intervention. Did the program actually work? Did it reduce their stress or anxiety based on the measures?
Well, this is where the paradox really comes into focus. Based on the pre- and post-intervention comparisons, the study did not find significant changes in anxiety levels, in the reported officiating stress, or in the cardiac responses between the intervention group and the control group.
Wait, really? So scientifically speaking, the intervention didn't demonstrably reduce stress or anxiety according to those measures?
Correct. Statistically, based on those specific metrics, anxiety scores, stress surveys, HR-HRV, the direct effectiveness of the intervention couldn't be proven.
That seems surprising, given it was designed specifically for stress management. What else did they find related to the intervention group?
Well, digging deeper, there were some interesting trends, though not statistically significant overall. Refs in the intervention group actually rated some types of match-specific stress slightly higher after the intervention.
Higher? Like what?
Things like problematic single decisions or social conflicts. Their ratings went up a bit compared to their own pre-intervention scores.
That's the opposite of what you'd expect.
It is, although it's crucial to remember their overall stress levels still remain low. It wasn't a huge jump. And looking at the heart data, heart rate during the match actually increased slightly for the intervention group post-intervention, while it decreased for the control group.
The increased heart rate for the group getting help.
And similarly, their pre-match HRV, the relaxation measure, decreased slightly for the intervention group, while it increased for the control group.
So by these objective measures, it almost looks like the intervention group fared slightly worse, or at least showed more physiological activation. This is the core of that paradox you mentioned earlier, isn't it?
It really highlights it. Objectively, the expected improvements weren't there, and some measures even trended slightly the wrong way.
Yeah.
But, and this is a huge but, here's the key insight. It comes from that QS-17 questionnaire, the one evaluating the intervention program itself, filled out only by the intervention group.
Their feedback.
Yes. Despite the lack of change in the other measures, their ratings on this questionnaire showed strong perceived benefits from the program.
How strong?
They rated the program as highly successful, especially when compared against reference values from athletes receiving similar support. They found the coaching relationship very supportive. They felt understood, trusted the psychologists, found the concepts easy to grasp.
That relationship piece is often huge.
Absolutely. They also gave high ratings for skills and capabilities. Comments like, I realize what I can actually achieve by using my mental game.
So they felt they learned valuable tools.
And performance state also scored high. They felt the learned skills helped improve their performance both in sport and even outside of sport.
That is fascinating. So the HR didn't change, the anxiety scores didn't drop significantly, but they felt better equipped, more supported, and more capable.
Precisely that.
Yeah.
Their subjective experience was overwhelmingly positive, even if the objective data didn't reflect it in the way we might initially expect.
It suggests the intervention was potentially boosting their internal resources, their confidence, their coping strategies.
Yes, exactly. Enhancing how they appraised situations and strengthening their coping, even if it didn't immediately translate into lower baseline HR or self-reported anxiety scores, especially in a group already functioning at a high level.
So if these refs started out reporting low stress anyway, and the objective stuff didn't move much, what does that tell us? Maybe about the study's limits or about elite performers?
It strongly suggests potential ceiling effect.
Ceiling effect.
Yeah, these are elite performers. They likely already possess really strong self-awareness and effective coping skills just to be at that level.
They wouldn't have gotten there otherwise.
Probably not. So a general intervention might have limited measurable impact because they're already near the ceiling of their coping capacity, at least in terms of these standard measures.
So maybe future research needs to be more tailored.
Exactly. Perhaps focusing on interventions for refs who are reporting higher stress, or maybe interventions designed to refine already existing elite skills rather than teaching foundational ones.
That makes a lot of sense. So, okay, the direct measurable impact wasn't dramatic, but there's a bigger picture here, a theoretical contribution, right? This isn't just about volleyball, Ref.
Oh, absolutely. This kind of research is vital because it broadens our whole understanding of stress in sports.
How so?
It pushes beyond the traditional focus on athletes and brings officials into the picture. It highlights their unique, often cognitive stressors and expands our perspective on who experiences pressure in the sporting arena. It provides really valuable insights for future studies, not just in sport, but potentially in other high-pressure jobs too.
And practically speaking, did these findings actually lead to anything tangible for referees, given the, nuanced results?
They did. The findings from this study and related work have already influenced how referee education and training are approached in Germany.
Oh, really?
There is now a greater integration of psychological aspects into their programs. More emphasis on personalized coaching, often in small groups, to help refs manage stress effectively.
So they're acknowledging the mental side more formally.
Yes. Acknowledging the psychological challenges and equipping them with tools, focusing not just on objective performance metrics, but also on their subjective well-being, their confidence. It recognizes that feeling supported and capable matters, even if your heart rate doesn't drop 5 beats per minute on a chart.
What a really interesting deep dive. It's looked at a group we often just see as part of the background. So to wrap this up for you, the listener, the main story here is that while the scientific intervention didn't show huge statistical shifts in stress or anxiety for these elite volleyball refs based on objective data.
Right. The numbers didn't move dramatically.
The referees themselves felt the program was highly beneficial. They reported feeling more supported and gaining valuable skills.
Yes, that's the crucial point. Their subjective assessment was clear. The sports psychological support was valuable and helpful. It strongly suggests there's a real need and appreciation for this kind of support, even if the immediate payoff isn't always obvious in physiological stats or standard anxiety scores.
It points to a really promising area for future work.
Definitely, both for research and for applied sport psychology. It pushes us to consider multiple layers of what success or improvement looks like.
And this brings us to a final thought for you to ponder. In high-pressure roles, maybe in sports, maybe in your own job or life, how do you weigh objective measurements against someone's subjective feeling of being better off, more capable, more supported? What does this study suggest about the power of perceived support and skill development, even when those traditional metrics, the numbers, stay largely the same?
It's a great question.
If you want to explore the full details, the methodology, all the findings of this really thought-provoking study, we definitely encourage you to read the full article.
It's well worth the read.
And remember, for more deep dives into fascinating research like this, make sure you follow our channel and turn on those notifications. You won't want to miss what we unpack next.